in perfect sympathy with his own comic spirit, Hablot Browne, who signed his works as Phiz, as a compliment to Dickens, who had adopted the pen name Boz when he first began to write. Thereafter, Boz and Phiz became inseparably linked in the public's mind. Going his own way, Dickens created a rambling, picaresque novel, a tribute to the literary heroes of his childhood, Fielding and Smollett, who first evolved this kind of novel in English literature. Such a novel involves a journey or series of excursions, allowing the author to introduce random characters and situations as their genius suggested. Thus, the Pickwick Papers abounds in portraits of lower middle-class and working-class characters, lawyers and their clerks, county magistrates, medical students, innkeepers, waiters, chambermaids, coachmen, cabmen, and more, their foibles and follies exposed with rich humour and understanding already well developed in the young author, and which was to become the hallmark of Dickens's style in the novels to come. The success of Pickwick was phenomenal. So great was the Pickwick craze that a contemporary remarked it had secured far more attention than was given to the ordinary politics of the day. There were Pickwick cigars, hats, and coats, and Pickwick was the buzzword of 1836. Early reviewers were amazed by the rapid success of young Boz's first novel, and suggested that he could not keep up this energetic comic style, and though he had risen like a rocket, he would come down like the stick. But Dickens was no passing phenomenon. With the publication of the Pickwick Papers, Charles Dickens had arrived to stay.
Mr. Pickwick meets Mr. Jingle. While his three companions were busily engaged in proffering their thanks to their new acquaintance, Mr. Pickwick had leisure to examine his costume and appearance. He was about the middle height, but the thinness of his body and the length of his legs gave him the appearance of being much taller. The green coat had been a smart dress garment in the days of swallow-tails, but had evidently in those times adorned a much shorter man than the stranger, for the soiled and faded sleeve scarcely reached to his wrists. It was buttoned closely up to his chin, at the imminent hazard of splitting the back, and an old stock without a vestige of shirt collar ornamented his neck. His scanty black trousers displayed here and there those shiny patches which bespeak long service, and were strapped very tightly over a pair of patched and mended shoes, as if to conceal the dirty white stockings, which were, nevertheless, distinctly visible. His long black hair escaped in negligent waves from beneath each side of his old pinched-up hat, and glimpses of his bare wrists might be observed between the tops of his gloves and the cuffs of his coat sleeves. His face was thin and haggard, but an indescribable air of jaunty impudence and perfect self-possession pervaded the whole man. Such was the individual on whom Mr. Pickwick gazed through his spectacles, which he had fortunately recovered, and to whom he proceeded, when his friends had exhausted themselves, to return in chosen terms his warmest thanks for his recent assistance. "Never mind," said the stranger, cutting the address very short. "Said enough. No more. Smart chap, that cabman. Handled his fives well. But if I'd been your friend in the green jemmy, damn me, punch his head. Cod I would. Pig's whisper. Pieman too. No gammon." This coherent speech was interrupted by the entrance of the Rochester coachman to announce that the Commodore was on the point of starting. "Commodore," said the stranger, starting up. "My coach. Place booked. One outside. Leave you to pay for the brandy and water? Want change for a 5. Bad silver. Brummagem buttons won't do. No go, eh?" And he shook his head most knowingly. Now, it so happened that Mr. Pickwick and his three companions had resolved to make Rochester their first halting-place too, and having intimated to their newfound acquaintance that they were journeying to the same city, they agreed to occupy the seat at the back of the coach, where they could all sit together. "Up with you," said the stranger, assisting Mr. Pickwick onto the roof with so much precipitation as to impair the gravity of that gentleman's deportment very materially. "Any luggage, sir?" inquired the coachman. "Who, I?"